Good afternoon, I'm Gary Walpole, Director of ION Leadership at Swansea University, a Welsh Government funded leadership and innovation programme. This afternoon I'm talking to you from SWBC, the Smart Welsh Business Channel, and today I've got Trystan Davies, a Programme Manager at Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water, who's supporting Dŵr Cymru's drive in terms of their innovation and developing the customer experience. Trystan, thanks for coming along.
Not a problem, Gary. Thanks for having me.
So we met when you engaged in an innovation programme I was delivering here as part of the university, and you've been kind enough to agree to talk to us about some of the personal insights and experiences you've had in your role to date. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe where you started your career and some of the development or training that you went through before that?
Oh, so my career, I'd say, goes back quite a fair way. Probably before I had a degree. I actually first started work when I was 13 years old. So a lot of people may have started doing paper rounds, but that was my very first job. 6 days a week, 6 o'clock in the morning, in rain, snow, sun, every single weather, and I really enjoyed that. Okay, it was never ever great money. However, you know, it taught me quite a lot about what I could do as myself as a young person, that I had that ability to get up, go and do something, earn a little bit of money for myself while I was still learning, while I was still developing, and I had that capability and capacity that some of my peers didn't think that they had. So I was kind of, I wouldn't say I thought I was better, because I was totally wrong, but I always thought that I felt like I could challenge myself more, and I can always drive more in terms of what I did. And that really kind of led me on to initially starting a career in the military. Oh. So I was in the Royal Marine Reserves until the budget cuts, which was, it's quite devastating when the budget cuts kicked in, because you work really hard to get to that level. You physically challenge yourself in ways that you never thought you could before, and you really prove to yourself that you are capable of more. You have that confidence, and you have that ability to then understand what you can do and what you can't do, and not to think of the things that you can't do as a negative, but just to understand that's where I need to improve, and that's where you need to do better. So, you know, after the budget cuts, which unfortunately I didn't get to stay with the Royal Marines, I was part of the Yorkshire Officers Training Regiment, which is an attachment to 4 Yorks. So this was while I was in university in Sheffield Hallam. So the Yorkshire Officer Training Regiment is a unit that's focused around training young people to become officers in the army while they're going through education at university. So I was on a fast track, which meant I was doing the officer training in a year as opposed to 2, which was really fantastic, challenged me, pushed me out of my comfort zone. You know, it's not all about the physicality. You have to learn quite a lot about your decision making, your ability to handle yourself under pressure, your confidence, your ability to talk to different people. You know, you have to remember that the military is not just a fighting force. It's got a lot of different arms and legs to it. You know, you have to maybe engage with people from air support element, from naval support, civilians, government, those kind of roles. So it's not just about officer to soldier kind of level. And that kind of, it really did teach me a lot about myself, more so mentally than physically. Then after university, the climate as it was in South Wales, it wasn't always easy to get a job. So I actually did a lot of little jobs. So little bits of kind of environmental consultancy work, the likes of bird and bat surveys, those kind of things. So you were just going out, spending the night, sitting outside, making sure you were as quiet as possible so you weren't disturbing the wildlife, but trying to record when they were noticed, how many they were, that kind of thing, which all went into understanding how we could use our land more effectively. So when was the right time to go and plant a new forestry, when was the right time to cut one down, when could an infrastructure project actually begin at the right time without disturbing the life cycle of those individual animals. But there wasn't really the consistency of work to keep somebody going when you're only kind of working 1 or 2 days a week. So I eventually started working for Lidl's as a deputy store manager. I thought I'd take a different turn of events and see if I could try my hand at retail. So I worked at 3 different stores, which were in Bridgend, Treorchy and Dowlais Top, and you had some very, very different demographics, both within the people who shopped in the store and the people who worked in there as well. You know, going from more affluent areas around Bridgend and the Vale Glamorgan to Dowlais Top around the Gurnos, which is traditionally one of the least affluent parts of Wales. And you really, really learned how to speak to different people, how to understand what they were going through, and to listen to them. You know, really, really understand what they're doing. Because other than that, if you gave them kind of a blank face, your usual corporate scripted answer, you get absolutely nowhere. So you'll do the training, you'll get those kind of corporate answers, but you'll know that actually what I need to do is, first and foremost, I just need to listen to them. I need to really take in what they're saying, really take in what they're asking for, and then what I can take back from that. And but fundamentally, retail wasn't really my thing.
Okay.
I'm probably not as corporate as some people, or really as commercially minded as they like to be in retail. It's a very, very, very competitive industry. I mean, you're talking pennies saved on various items. So I came out, and I came in through Welsh Water on the graduate scheme, which I was successful in getting through, despite only getting invited to interview 20 hours before, which was a bit of a challenge. I did originally apply the year before I started working for Lidl's, and I was unsuccessful on getting in that time. The second year I applied, we had to do these online tests around your maths, your English, your ability to understand situations, and maths, which is one of my strong points. I was like, gonna nail this one. Computer crashed halfway through, but as soon as you started the test, it wouldn't do it. So I literally only got halfway through the test, and I was like, well, that one's gone for another year. But fortunately, there was a dropout, and I went through to the interview, and I did obviously quite well in the interview. I did end up getting a role within Welsh Water. So there, a couple of months later, I started, and I've stayed in Welsh Water since. A number of roles in Welsh Water, as a matter of fact. It's been quite good.
So a couple of things there sound really interesting. So you mentioned comfort zone when you were in your military training.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more about that and how that had an impact?
Yeah, I tend to find, and you know, whether people think that they'll always express themselves outside the comfort zone, they'll always push. As soon as you get into that bit of comfort and security, and you know what you're about, people can tend to kind of fall back and be afraid to try different things. And the military experience really pushed you out of that, because you just quite simply couldn't. There were other people that relied on you and genuinely relied on you. And okay, in the scenarios I was in, I wasn't actually in life or death scenarios. I wasn't in a war zone at the time. However, it's simulated pretty well, and you absolutely get that feeling. You know, actually, if I don't look at myself and look what I can do differently, then fundamentally there's every opportunity that somebody else is going to suffer for me not challenging myself. And these are people who are really, really good friends. You build up such a close bond, so you really want to work hard for them. But then you kind of realise that afterwards, you're not necessarily just working hard for them. You realise that actually you wanted the success, and that's why you were doing it. And it kind of brings on to the point that you then learn about grasping opportunities. You'll always speak to people, particularly as you get later and later in life, and they'll always more start to tell you about things that they wish they did. And more often than not, it's not the fact that they never had the opportunity. The things that they wish they did, they had the opportunity and they just didn't take it. And when they look back, they think, damn, I really wish I'd done that. That would have been very good for me. If nothing else, I would have enjoyed the experience, and I would have been very, very happy for it. I've got an example of that. I actually had the opportunity to be in a Hollywood film, so if you ever get a chance, check it out. I'm going to say it should have been Oscar nominated. It wasn't, but you know, that's a bit unfortunate. So it was a film called The Killer Elite, and it was based on Ranulph Fiennes' book Feathermen. So this was while I was in the Royal Marine Reserves down in Cardiff. Essentially, it was a book that was about special forces, a film that was about special forces. Star-studded cast: Robert De Niro, Jason Statham, Dominic Purcell, you know, some pretty big names in acting, all going around the Brecon Beacons in St Athens. So when they were filming, they had what's called professional extras, people who kind of do it for a day job, even though the work's quite inconsistent. Well, the professional extras didn't really know what to look like or do in a military context. So the production staff actually asked us if we fancied doing some filming for a few days, So all of us thought, yes, what a good chance. We're never ever going to get a chance to be on film. Whether or not we look rubbish on camera or not is relevant. So when we got there, what we found is the professional extras were really trying to overdo it. They were kind of taking their perception from what they'd seen on video games and what they'd seen on TV and kind of taking that as a perception of real life. So they were actually pretty crap, because even if you didn't look at it on camera, you looked at it just didn't replicate reality. And the movement was very jittery, and it was very much like they thought they were going to get shot at every option, even though the scenario they were in is they were just training in the Brecon Beacon, so you have to be, you know, on your guard and everything like that. But if you're trying to move around and you're trying to not be noticed, then moving around is a very static. It's kind of going to get you picked up by most things. Trees don't move in that way. So yeah, so we got brought in to actually cover off for the extras, and that was a really fantastic experience. And you know, one of the things that I really did take away from that is, as I said, there were some pretty big names there, and you just learned that they were just people. They didn't necessarily think of themselves as anything special. When there was food on, they sat down next to you. You had a conversation about where they came from, their wife and kids, what they did, where they were going on holiday, those kind of things. They were just people like anyone else. It's not, you know, it's not something that per se has to be on a pedestal. You just got to be normal. You just got to be yourself and not be afraid to be yourself.
Great story.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. You said that the Lidl was a good experience, although retail wasn't for you. It does sound like you took some real insights from that work in retail.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, retail's a hard environment for anyone who goes into it. It's generally on a shift pattern, so your hours are irregular, which can mean, you know, you can be a little bit groggy when you're in there. Your body clock is almost always a little bit off, and particularly an organisation like Lidl and Aldi, they work on a skeleton staff. So if you're one person down, then you're always going to be on the back foot. Now, a lot of the times, you know, kind of being under that level of pressure, people can kind of feel it and blow. They can feel like they've got too much to do and they couldn't possibly do everything. You know, the big takeaway from that is there's only so much time in the day, and fundamentally you want to be able to go home at the end of the day. So if you're trying to rush around with a 1-ton crate of food products, you don't want to be rushing too much, because if something goes wrong with that, that falls. And 1 ton, no matter whichever way it falls, no matter whatever it is, weighs a lot. You could hurt yourself and you could do some damage. So you just really learn about what you prioritise and how you prioritise it. And being in the position in store management that I was in, it's really making sure that you're looking after your staff and really making sure that you're facilitating them to be able to do the job as best they can. And I kind of emphasise as best they can. You don't always have to do everything to be successful, but you just have to do the best job that you can do with the resources that you have available. And that was quite a good insight for me, because you can tend to feel that pressure and really feel like you've got to do everything. And particularly the younger members of staff coming through with the on the tills, they'd obviously do some of the shelf stacking. They're on 10 hours a week. Sometimes it's their first job. They want to keep the job. Some of them are trying to fund themselves through college, through university, that kind of thing. And they really feel like they've got to do it, and just to be able to take them back and, you know, just speak to them about why they feel that they've got that level of pressure. You know, just ask them, tell me a little bit more about it, explain to it, and, you know, really put them at ease, really reassure them that you know, you're there to look after them, not to be, you know, the boss, as it were, not to be a bully, but, you know, to be, well, a person.
Sounds like a real leadership lesson that not only you developed there, but you were able to support other people in that respect.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's one of the things with leadership that it's, some titles people can tend to put up on a pedestal. Manager, leader, certain role levels, that kind of thing. Really, it's all about being a good person. You may have certain skills that enabled you to get up to that level, but fundamentally, if you want to work with people, you've got to learn to be a person. And you've got to learn to be, you know, the best person that you can be. And that does mean being kind of empathetic. That does mean genuinely listen, not just yes and nod and hope to move on from the conversation as quickly as possible. If somebody's got something to say, you've got to give them the time to really listen to what they're saying. And there's some simple things people can do. Well, I've heard the phrase the TED conversation. Somebody says something to you, tell me more about that. Explain this to me. Describe a little bit more about it. You know, that TED is a really simple way to get that open question to really let them expand and open up and see how you can help them, how you can help them be the best person they can be.
And do you find that then enables you to build a much more positive working relationship?
No, absolutely, much more positive working relationship, because it's you hear people talk about work friends, outside work friends. Fundamentally, friends are friends, and you build relationships by listening, understanding, and taking account. When you've got your friends outside of work, you've built those relationships because maybe when you were younger you were in a scrap, or you were on the same football team, or that kind of thing. It's exactly the same principles in work. You build in those experiences through those relationships, through those shared experiences and that shared understanding, and then really getting to understand their perspectives.
And it sounds like you've taken those skills into do Cymru Welsh Water. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did when you started at Welsh Water, and kind of where you are now, maybe?
So when I started in Welsh Water, I started in the hydraulic modelling team. Now, I'd never done anything with hydraulic modelling. I certainly didn't count myself as an especially computer literate person, but it was a new challenge and I was keen to get on with it. First and foremost, you have to kind of understand what you're doing and what you're there for. So the hydraulic modelling is essentially building a digital double of the water network. You understand how water moves through the network, what constraints it experiences, and thus why customers are likely to be getting annoyed and be getting quite shirty when they're paying their water bill, but yet they're not really getting the service they expect. And then you get to get a bit more of an understanding about some of the challenges that your colleagues will face, particularly the ones who are more customer facing or trying to do those kind of repairs. So it was really good for me to get that real technical understanding of how a water network operates and some of the science behind it. So then my next post on the graduate scheme was actually in operations itself, which was like kind of out of the frying pan and into the fire, because it's a very, very busy environment. A lot of times now customers won't even notice that there's an issue with the water supply, whereas kind of 20 years ago they'll remember somebody driving down the street on a tannoy saying your water's going to go off and everyone's going, fill the bath kind of thing. And that doesn't really happen anymore, and it's because of the good work that goes on in the background. So my role in the operations element of the business was to facilitate with some of the technical assessments with that bit of a modelling background to understand, well, if we do have these issues, what can we do about it? And so that's not, a lot of people tend to kind of go in the shell there and go, well, I've got my information in front of me and I'm going to stay within my boundary and I'm not going to move outside it. Well, the first thing I thought I wanted to do, I want to go and speak to the people who are working in that area, the operators who are there, because the information I have might not actually be right, and they might have some really valuable insight into the kind of issues they get, the experiences, and it's very good for you to build that relationship, because again, people feel like they're being listened to and they can see that you're trying to take action about it. It's not just kind of some problem that's going to sit in the ether. So I was actually, Welsh Water have been very, very good at developing their people. They're very good at giving opportunities. So even though I'd only been in the company 6 months, they'd give me the opportunity to design a plan as to how we could change around how a certain element of the water network operated, and just so we could improve customer performance. We could reduce the amount of time our guys were having to go out of hours, which would mean they're having to wake their partners up because their phone's going off at 12 o'clock in the night. They're out all night. They're not seeing the kids. They may get a call on Christmas Day. It can be pretty tough, and they can get quite upset quite quickly, and understandably so. And so I actually produced that kind of optimization plan, and from that it wasn't just that we can improve that, we can improve the way the network functioned, the running cost of business, we could remove water pumping stations, reduce our carbon footprint, and I felt very, very proud of being able to have the opportunity to do something like that. Aside from when there were incidents going on, I was allowed to be involved. I was given responsibilities while those incidents were ongoing, which I like a challenge. I like to put myself outside of my comfort zone and really see what I'm capable of and understand my strengths and weaknesses. So when you get put in this incident environment where, I'd say for instance, a large trunk main has burst, thousands of people off water, we've got to get them back on as quickly as possible, but while doing it safely. So then having responsibility for part of that task to work within that team environment, to work promptly, accurately and collaboratively, it really, really puts you out there. So I really, really enjoyed that opportunity. But Welsh Water didn't kind of dictate where you went next. They give you the opportunities on your 2-year scheme. So they give me a set of options I could go to in my next phase. And I thought, in terms of my career development, I never kind of said, and I still have never said, I want to be in this specific role. I've always thought I want to be at certain levels, because any organisation you go in, there's always kind of some form of a banding structure. And I thought, well, to be at a certain level, you've got to be able to do a certain set of things. There's a core set of skills and requirements from that role. So that's what I really tried to work on myself, understanding that if I was successful in getting to any role, the kind of periphery elements, those are things you can develop while you're there, those are skills that you learn, and it gives you a really good opportunity to speak to the people around you, because you're trying to pick up that additional information.
So do you think it's key that someone thinks about where they want to get to in terms of either a role or in terms of development, that they outline or think about some of the key competencies or capabilities? I
think it's important, but I'd say that they shouldn't keep it fixed. They may do something and actually find out, you know what, it's really not for them. They may not enjoy managing a team, they may enjoy being a technical specialist, and that's absolutely fine. They may enjoy being at the role level they're at and might not want to conquer the world. Again, that's absolutely fine, because wherever you want to do, first and foremost, you should understand yourself, because you want to be happy in your work and you want to be happy in life. And if you're not happy, then you're not going to do as well as you can. You're not going to feel fulfilled. You might take, if it's work related, you might take your grumps home. And if you're not happy at home, you might take your grumps to work. And nobody wants to be unhappy. Fundamentally, we all want to be happy. So I would say that it's really important that people do have a look at actually where they want to be and what they think they need to get there. Again, don't be afraid to ask. If there's people operating at that kind of level that they want to be at, or in those kind of roles, speak to them about the job, see what they do, see what they enjoy, what they'd like to do differently. Really have that listen and make sure that you're an informed individual. Build your little plan, and if it's working, great. If you want to do something different, then do something different. Take your opportunities.
It sounds like you're quite able to identify where you've developed transferable skills. Any suggestions on how maybe young people can do that?
Yeah, for me, one of the personal lessons I've always thought with kind of transferable skills is if you put yourself outside your comfort zone. And I know it may be a bit cliched, but really, it can be, and it doesn't just have to be in work. Maybe in your social life, in activities you want to do. There may be a variety of different things that you can do to really push yourself outside your comfort zone, because that's really where you can learn where your weaknesses are. But then when you can go, do you know what, when I do that again, I'll do this a little bit differently. Okay. I'll do that a little bit differently. And you don't have to think that all of a sudden, just because you've done it once, you're going to be a superstar in a year's time. It may take a long time, it may take a short time. Depends how quickly you can pick it up. But for me, to pick up transferable skills, push yourself outside your comfort zone and take opportunities. It doesn't always work out, but you kind of have to take the attitude that you don't always have to win, but you can think that you've never lost, because you've either won or you've learned from it.
Thank you. So, would you describe that you've got a personal or idiosyncratic leadership style, or is there something that you see or someone you see in Welsh Water that enables you to model yourself?
Oh, that's a good question, Joe. There's a lot of actually quite good leaders in Welsh Water, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of them. But there were a couple of sergeants actually while I was in the military who really, for me, taught me a lot about what leadership was. So when you're younger people, you can also be quite impressionable. And after a little while, I didn't actually ever want to go in full time. I only ever wanted to stay in part time. And you got a little bit of stick from the guys around you who are all really keen to go in, but you do kind of learn very quickly that it is a single man's game, or single person's game, I should say. And some of the sergeants would just come up to me and just say, don't ever be afraid to live your own life. I know it's that kind of thing that you just go, do you know what, out of anything everyone's ever kind of said to me, those are the kind of things that have really stuck with me, those really key kind of moments of actual leadership, not so much around direction and vision of an organisation, but actually able to work with that person and lead them to where they want to be and where they can be their best. I think
Thank you.
for me, on a personal kind of leadership point, I like to try and empower my staff as much as I can. So I like to understand what they know and what they don't know, and we can work on what they don't know, but I like them to take more ownership of their work. I don't want to be dictating to my staff, this is exactly what you're going to do, this is exactly how you want to do it. I want to work with them to understand what's the best approach, how can we be most consistent in what we do, how can we make sure that we have a good work-life balance so we're not ending up having peaks and troughs and we end up either getting bored or stressed. And then where they want to be, because fundamentally some people may not want to stay in that role for all time. Some people may want to develop, and if they want to develop, you shouldn't really stand in their way. What you should do is to help them get there.
Okay, so it sounds like you're very keen on delegating and developing people. Are there any key, I suppose, messages that you think are important in that respect?
Yeah, it's be gradual. Don't rush into things. You have to take it very steadily. Sometimes you can put too much on individuals too quickly, so you can. There's a number of different academic models you can use out there around kind of how you take situational leadership, for instance, which is kind of a model I more affiliate with myself, where you'll first get people who want to come on, and initially, while they may be inexperienced or lacking knowledge, you may have to direct them a lot more. You may have to put them in a bit more of a specific position, or get them doing more specific tasks so they can develop. And then you may end up moving into a more coaching or supportive role, where you're trying to get that person to develop themselves and really start to take that ownership. And then when they're kind of in those positions where they're really getting themselves to not kind of need you so much, and that's really where you're in that delegating mode, where you can really turn around to people and say, can you do this by this time? And they'll say yes, knowing exactly what they've got to do, how they've got to do it, and you know that the quality of what they're going to do is absolutely right.
Can you tell me if you think either the water industry or the geographic context that you work in moulds your leadership style in any way?
I'd agree that the environment that you're in is very, very important in terms of your leadership style, particularly the earlier you are in your career, when you're probably more easily influenced. So geography, which is what I studied in university, means the study of everything. And I kind of find myself as being a bit more of a generalist. I have a general interest in a lot of different things. It doesn't take much to really spark my imagination or my attention. And for me, that kind of helps in my leadership style, because if I see something I think can be done or can be done better, or someone who's got that real spark about them, I really want to work with it. I really want to do something about it. I want to make it the best that it can be. I think the vision and the environment that the water industry is moving towards, and I kind of say Welsh Water more in particular with the model, is helping develop those kind of people as the future. So the water industry was always originally developed around a very, very good purpose. It was all around public health and safety. It's probably done more for public health than even the NHS has, since the water industry has been devised, and we now have safe, clean drinking water, and we have wastewater that's taken away, treated, and put back into the environment. What we've found is that the levels of polio, diphtheria, typhoid, dysentery, all those really quite nasty diseases that killed quite a lot of people, just don't exist anymore. So it allows people to live in quite close confines. So when you come into an industry that has that level of purpose, that basically the people who are around you, the people you love and care about, actually, whether they know it or not, they're really dependent on what you do. It gives you a real sense of what you're there for. And Welsh Water's kind of taken that step further in the water industry. It's a not-for-profit organisation, so all the surplus money that Welsh Water makes goes back into its customers. And that's in terms of asset investment, it's in terms of social tariffs to support people who in an area deprived area like Wales may not be able to pay their bills. Help support that, help support some of our environmental projects, some of our community engagement projects. So for that you get really good purpose about what the company's about. You get a real passion for what it's there for, and as a result it kind of can make it a lot easier to motivate people, because you have your own self-motivation. I think setting up that kind of environment really allows people to try and become the best that they can be.
And it sounds like you're really motivated by that kind of value-based organisation.
Yeah, I love my job. I know what I'm there to do. I know why I'm there to do it. and I see the benefit in what I do. So for me, it's really easy to get up in the morning, it's really easy to turn into work, and it's really easy when a challenge comes along because you really feel why you're there and you understand the why.
That's great to hear. Well, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Gary.
That was a really insightful piece, and my thanks go to Trystan Davies, Programme Manager at Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water, for the time he's given us and the insights into the leadership and innovation that he is supporting Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water to deliver. SWBC will be bringing you more insightful interviews from key business people from across Wales who have got insights to share in terms of their leadership and management stories.